all four of those modules. We're going to do a quick recap: educate, engage, equip, and empower. Now, today is empower. This is going to be important. We're going to get cozy together today, because today's when we're going to talk about you. Now, we've talked about the product. We've talked about the company. We've talked about the industry and space. We've talked about personas of our brand. We've talked about how our product fits into the marketplace today. We've also talked about how essential it is for you to really have a grasp of your personality and others, so that you can actually have the right communication tools going in when you're speaking with small business owners. Now, when we say small business owners, we're talking about brick and mortar, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, network marketers, anyone that considers themselves a business owner. And so all throughout these four modules, we've been able to do a great job of walking through a lot of details. But today, empower comes back to you. It doesn't matter how great a company is, how great the product is, how great the system and even the compensation plan is. What's important is, are you ready to take an opportunity where a company has spent over $80 million on a product development? Are you ready to take that, have it put into your hand and say, now we've paid for and will continue to pay for product development, but now we're going to put it in your hands, and you get to be the hands and feet, boots on the street. And we're going to give you a compensation plan that is second to none. When you go through, and again, we've already done that in this for the four modules. We've gone through the compensation plan in great detail. If you missed that, go back to the deep dive compensation plan training and realize that what the company has done is put a product, a system, and a compensation model into your hands, so that really the sky is the limit. You have no boss. You have no one telling you what you can and can't do. You are now the master of your sales. You are the one who gets to say, if I get up out of bed today and I crush it, it's on me. If I stay in bed, I'm apathetic and I use excuses, it's on me. So today, we're going to get it back on you so that you feel energized and ready to get out, speak to the number of people. I was speaking to one of the V12 this week that called in for a little coaching, and we were talking about their business and what their big audacious goals are for between now and our launch, which is going to happen in the middle of the year. I don't think there's been an exact date set, so I won't reveal that. But just know that it's coming up and it's going to be exciting. And you should have goals set for how you want to walk across that stage and how you want to be recognized. So they had a very big, audacious goal of where they want to be. So we sat down and I said, well, how many people are you talking to every day? And how many yeses are you getting? Now, if you were with us these last couple of certified trainings, and you know that we've talked about speed and accuracy, and how speed and accuracy increases because of frequency. Obviously, you're going to get more accurate, just like Michael Jordan, or that was the guy in my day. I think then it was Kobe Bryant, and obviously Kobe Bryant now he has 100% accuracy in heaven. But accuracy comes because you've taken more shots. It's because you've taken more no's, or you've had more misses. Michael Jordan said, it's not because I have the best shot. It's just because I take the most shots and I have the most misses. So accuracy and speed are greatly dependent on how much, or your frequency, how often you're sharing Vox Direct or your value proposition with other people. So again, it comes back to you. So today we're going to be talking about how you can be empowered to be able to go out and take advantage of this incredible system, the incredible business and products that are being put into your hands by Vox Direct and VoxOx. So here's what we're going to cover. I don't know that we'll get through it all today, and we've been taking a very casual approach in this certification program as we're in pre-launch, really working through the dynamics. You guys are probably getting more information than anybody else will ever get out of the certification. You're probably getting more training than anyone else will ever get in this first certification model, but we want to make sure that we're going through and we're identifying what are the soft spots and what are the anchor points of what's really going to give the trajectory to the team moving forward. Now, mindset reset, we touched on that a little bit last week. I gave you actually training that's not in the certified training, but I felt like it was really important so that everyone coming to the table recognizing that you are now partnered with a company that spent over $80 million in research development and actually on the product development itself. Well, what does it take for you to operate as the CEO of your business? We talked about that last week. This week, we're going to talk about core values, goal setting, and reverse engineering of those goals. Now, this is a very intimate part of our training. We're not going to be talking about features. We're not going to be talking about compensation plan. We're not going to be talking about widgets. We're not going to be talking about back-end support. Today is all about you. And it's about how can we begin to, the product is been manufactured. And every day it's being tweaked in order to have better features, better use. The UI, UX is constantly being updated. The team is a team of brilliant developers and coders and engineers, product development specialists. And every single day, no matter what you're doing out in the field, there is a company that's working endlessly to perfect the product, to advance the product, to get into spaces that technology hasn't gone yet in the area of direct sales, to be able to give you a winning edge, and to be able to create a truly revolutionary company. The question is, while there's all that money and expense to the hires that are putting their effort behind the product's development and system, what are you doing to develop you? So if the company was 100% dependent on you being the only salesperson in the field, would this company survive? Do you have a CEO mindset that says, you know what, if everyone else disappears, I'm going to run a solid business that is going to make life better for many? Well, today, that's why we're going to talk about mindset reset. Now, if you remember last week, we talked about that CEO mindset and the levels of business consciousness. Now, in other fields, I teach this a little different because I talk about how can be spiritual consciousness or human consciousness, where your goal is to think like the creator, to think like you have absolutely infinite power, unmistakable capabilities, that you are able to operate and have the mind, for some people, the mind of God, the mind of the universe, whatever that is to you. For me, it's God. You guys know my faith. So how do we get to a place where we're not waiting for things to happen, but we're making things happen, that we're actually creators, that we're actually in a space of saying, you know what, I'm not going to wait for the company to give me a tool. I'm going to be a creator of tools. Maybe that means you got to meditate more. Maybe that means you need to pray more. Maybe that needs you need to study more. Maybe you need to take some online courses. Maybe you need to hire a coach. Maybe you need to go on to YouTube and study some sales mastery. What do you have to do if the world depended on you for success in this area? What are you doing to have a CEO mindset? Now, remember, we talked about the layers of this. A lot of people are followers. They're just looking for a job, a way to get paid. Many people operate in a fearful mindset. Some people are control freaks. They want to tell people what to do, but they don't necessarily want to do it themselves. They want to sit on top of an organization, but they don't want to get in the grind of making things happen. Then you got people who are all about rules and dogma. Everything has to be just so, or they freak out. Those bottom three are very controlled mechanisms. They're very, very base human nature. But then suddenly people start to have a slight awakening where they want to collaborate. They want to help save the earth. Maybe they get plugged into their local church. Maybe they say, you know what, there's more to life than what I'm doing. I've been very selfish in my life. And now I want to start caring for the earth, caring for the whales, caring for people, saving children. You got picketers, you got people that are now willing to do marches. That's in that area of collaboration because they want to be a part of a tribe of a bigger whole. But then there's that next stage, which is what I call self-leadership, a change maker. Somebody says, you know what, I'm going to do whatever is necessary. I'm not just going to join a march. I'm going to start a march. I'm not going to just join a company. I want to be the owner and operator of something that creates change and significant impact in the world. And then the final two would be awakening and CEO mindset. Awakening is when you actually operate in a sense of peace that transcends the grind. It transcends I got to go, do. Although you do that, you do it in a state of peace instead of a state of anxiety. When you are truly awakened, you realize that you can have progress and peace at the same time. Most people sacrifice peace for profits, meaning they do whatever they got to do. They get in the grind. They're going to work, 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 work. And next thing you know, their family's falling apart. Their health is falling apart because they're working so hard down in blue and red zones that they haven't truly experienced the fact that you can have peace and profits. But it means that you're going to have become very paced in your process. So I want to say that again. You can have peace and process, but you're going to have to learn pacing as you progress, right? Peace and profits. Okay. So then the next is CEO mindset. And we talked about that last week. That's when you are really thinking like the owner of Vox Direct. You're saying, what can I do to create new tools, new marketing? What can I do to get out in the world? And you do it from a sense of ownership. You're already awakened. You already have peace, but you're doing it from a sense that now I'm creating something that's going to make life better for many. And so having that as our basis as we move forward, I want us to jump into mindset reset. Now, of course, you know who this is on the screen. This is Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs left a major imprint on the world. I think we would all agree that there was no question that he was a brilliant mind. Many people after his passing and even right before his passing throughout his career would have said that Steve often operated in the red zone or the blue zone, that he was very, very, very domineering. There were a lot of things that said he was very narcissistic and controlling. But throughout his life, and especially as he grew, something happened in his life that he began to take on a greater awakening of wanting to make a difference in the world. It wasn't just about winning in business. It became about life and winning in life. You even see the brand of Apple shifting throughout the years to where the word you becomes very, very significant, that they became an empowering company that helped people do life better by creating better technology. So Steve Jobs said this: you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. Now, we're going to do this in your life today because we want to look at, we could look at any company in the world and go, well, the company did this or the company didn't do this. And we can always live in a place where we blame the systems around us. Our government did this, our president did this, my teacher did this, my mom did this. And suddenly we're blaming the world around us instead of taking responsibility for where we're at today and then blaming effectively. The only way you can blame effectively is if you connect the dots looking back. And we're going to do this. I want to give you an example. Growing up, I had a really strong, and you guys might have heard this in one of our previous trainings, very strong, faith-filled father who was very much a world changer and a history maker. He passed away with cancer at 63 years old. I don't believe cancer killed him. I believe stress killed him because he hadn't mastered the art of peace and profits. He gave his life away, traveled around the world, gave to Latin America, was a missionary, did just so much good for the world, but he was also a businessman. And so he was an extreme perfectionist, very much operated in the red and blue zone in his life. And so when I grew up, he wanted my brother and I to do everything to perfection. So when I said that I wanted to play basketball, he had me every day. If the team would practice for an hour, I had to practice for 2 hours. And he would say, do it again, again, again. He would have me stand outside and practice my free throws till I could shoot 25 free throws in a row before I could come in for dinner. And in those days, I would literally cry saying, it's so unfair. All the other kids are like outside playing, having fun, and I'm still working. I'll never be good enough for you. And then when it came to my music, the same thing. We lived in Canada, and so we had a basement, and he had this music system set up in the basement, and he would have me sing over and over and practice my diction and my pronunciation. And he would say it again. It is not it. It is it. I want to hear the T. I want to hear the S's. I want to hear clear enunciation. And so we would sit downstairs and he would practice with me. And I would always cry. I would come upstairs. It's just not fair. I'll never be good enough for you. And so in those early days, up until probably about 20, I didn't get it. I blamed him for making me different than everybody else and how I just couldn't understand why I would never be good enough. Fast forward a few years, and I end up being on stage with 5 US presidents. I end up singing around the world, recording 5 CDs, coaching CEOs and executives at the C level of billion-dollar, million-dollar companies. I mean, all of a sudden, I can now, in my mature CEO mindset state, look back and blame effectively. Now I look back and I blame my dad for making me an excellent competitor. I blame my dad for giving me the skills and the mindset to execute until a team has a win. I blame my dad for giving me the ability to have diction, enunciation, the ability to oratate and think and be able to process thoughts and critically think on behalf of organizations. Why? Because he told me then, again, again, again. He had me thinking to grow rich, even when I was just 16 years old. So now I can look back and blame the people in my past effectively because they made me who I am today. Now, maybe you've got people in your past that have hurt you, rejected you, abused you, molested you, shut you out, took your job, did things that were completely unacceptable in the area of business. Maybe you've had failures, but instead of looking back and blaming others or even yourself for the bad things, start blaming them for the fact that you're on this webinar today, and today is the first day of the rest of your life. Today, you have an opportunity to decide, am I going to live in my past or am I going to take control of my future? Am I going to allow the people or the things that have hurt me or the places where I failed to be an anchor that can hold me back? Or am I going to look that every setback is actually a set up for me to have a strategic comeback so that I can be the person that I was created to be, to leave the imprint on the world that I was created to live, that no one else on the planet has my skills. No one else on the planet has my hair. No one else on the planet has my background. No one on the planet has survived what I've survived. So that means there must be a plan and a purpose for my life that no one else has. And so today we're going to look at how can you have a mindset reset that shifts your universe out of maybe being attracted to negativity and you take 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back, or you feel like nothing really works, or maybe you've had success to a certain degree and then you self-sabotage. We're going to look for just a minute into your mindset and say, whoa, wait a minute. What got me here may not be everything I need in order to get me there. Now, what is your there? It's your why. It's your big audacious goal. And today I'm going to challenge you that goals are not enough, but I'm also going to challenge you that you don't want to just have your now goals, but you also want to have your big audacious life transformation take over the world goals. Because those are the goals. Some people say, well, I just want to be a mother. Well, great. Well, when you're a mother, you're going to have to change your goals because that's a limited goal. You may say, well, I just want to get to the top of this comp plan. Fantastic. But let's think beyond that. What if you're at the top of the comp plan? Then what? How are you going to impact the world? See, I believe that Vox Direct, yes, it's a technology company. Yes, it's a direct sales company. But the word Vox means voice. Really, what Vox Direct is doing is raising up voices that if we can put together an economic engine that begins to fuel your passion and your visions, that we're going to see people emerge and they're going to start orphanages. They're going to start programs. They're going to start businesses. They're going to start changing the world around them because they are the voice. So let's just take a look real quick at Steve Jobs. I don't know about you, but I got googly googlies this morning and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like the right people are on this call this morning. I'm feeling like the right people are watching this screen this morning. And if you're watching this afterwards, I believe that you've been directed because there's something more that you're supposed to do with this company than just sell a text and voice platform. This is a tool to give you an opportunity to get in front of people where you're going to be the voice that could totally shift their universe. Let's take a look at Steve Jobs. Now, before we go into the internal audit, let me tell you the story that I want you to remember about Steve. Now, if you have your book, I want you to just go into your book on page 92 And we wrote out a little bit about Steve's journey. Now, if you remember way back in 1985, obviously Steve had this brilliant idea for the company. He comes together with some people, he gets this company, but it was really his idea to start Apple. Well, when 1985 hit, they were in a catastrophic low. In fact, the company, most critics said there's no way the company will survive. So in 1985, they fired Steve from his own company. And as you can imagine, not only was that humiliating, it was frustrating, but you can imagine in his greatest red state, which is where he operated in that season, he was angry and he was mad. This was unfair. However, he didn't stay there. Instead of staying in that place, he went and he began to press into greater technologies, greater thoughts. He allowed his mind to shift out of blame and say, wait a minute, maybe this is a release for me to get away from the pressure of what's not working and into a think tank of what have we not thought of yet. And so, of course, you read on here, and Steve Jobs ends up returning to the company in 1997 and ends up taking back on. Now, remember, he had a great reprieve of being able to create new technologies, being able to create new alignments. Not every setback is designed to kill you or destroy you. Remember, some setbacks are a setup so that you can have the biggest comeback of your life. You might right now have experienced some great setbacks, but it could be a setup right now for what you're going to do with Vox Direct and the trainings and the tools and the systems and the products that are coming forward so that you can truly create a life and business that you love. In 1997, he took on the daunting task of resurrecting Apple. Now, out of you, as you know, there was a big shift that was taking in the marketplace at that time. Microsoft was Bill Gates was concerned that the industry where it was sitting at that time would actually look like a staged monopoly, meaning there were no competitors. So Microsoft needed Apple. Here's what's amazing. Right now, there could be somebody somewhere in the world that's thinking, we need a solution, and you might be the solution that they're looking for. There could be small businesses right now going, I just wish we had a way to connect with our customers. And right now, because of where the industry is, they might have looked at our competitors and said, it's just too expensive. They might have looked at our voice competitors and said, I just wish somehow we could bring the two together. They don't even know that you exist. And so here's what happens with Apple is, of course, they come back together. There's a $150 million investment made back into Apple. And Steve, in that season, had to come back, humble himself in order to take that position and take that investment from Microsoft, major competitor, in order to stage what I believe was the greatest comeback in business history. And today, where we stay right now, Apple is such a powerful part of human life, all because Steve didn't quit. Now, people have often said there's not another human being that would have taken the risks he's taken, that would have worked as hard as he's working. He was judged for the way he did it. But I have to say, when we look at the outcome, my question is, have you had a mindset reset that allows you to be humble in a season to say, you know what, in order for me to have my comeback, I'm going to have to make some changes. So the three things that we look at here is number one, brokenness. Do you think that Steve Jobs had some brokenness in that season? Absolutely. Humility, breakdown. So let me ask you this. And this is where I want you to imagine yourself right now in a place where I'm sitting with you. We're having a one-on-one conversation. We're sitting in a very comfortable place, whatever that is for you. For some people, that's a living room. For some people, that's on a golf cart. For some people, that's in a jet. For some people, that's sitting outside on a porch with a cup of tea. I want you to imagine that I'm talking to you right now because remember, today is about you. In what areas do you need to humble yourself so that greater things can occur for your finance, your family, your faith, your fitness, or your freedom? In what areas? And I want you to take your book right now, and I want you to go ahead and write in your book, or if you're, for whatever reason, wanting to save your book, get a piece of paper and begin to write this out. What area, if you're sitting with your spouse right now, I want you to ask yourself, what area do I need to be broken? A bone If it's growing dysfunctionally, it will always be a hindrance. So that's why you go into a doctor, and if a bone needs to be reset, they break it and they reset the bone so it can have maximum capabilities in the future, so that the muscles and the tendons form around a properly set bone. I want you to think right now, what areas need to be broken in your life and reset? That's why we call it a mindset reset, because this will affect your ability to come across confidently with a certainty that outweighs all uncertainty to people that are around you. This will be one of the greatest shifts that you make in order to elevate through that chart that we said, from beige to red to blue to green to orange to yellow to turquoise. Brokenness is the greatest way to elevate your consciousness. Why? Because less of you, more of the greatness that is intended to be put in you. I say it like this: less of me, more of God. Less of me, more of God. So brokenness and humility allows you to say, you know what, maybe I do need some help in one of these areas: finances, faith, family, fitness, or freedom. Well, the second is a perspective. You know, Steve Jobs had to shift his perspective on probably what he thought his company would be back in 1985 when he was fired, coming back in, and even all the way through to his death. He had to shift his perspective to do things that he probably said, I would never partner. I would never take an investment from Microsoft. I would never go back to those people who fired me. What is it that you can do that maybe you've said you'd never do that might actually produce better results in your life or business? Maybe you said, I will never forgive that person, and you continue to blame them negatively instead of blaming them positively. You know, I've got people that a gentleman this week, we've got in our nonprofit, we've got people who've been molested and raped and abused, people who have had their best friends murdered right in front of them, and for most of their life they lived with unforgiveness, and it was like a noose around their neck, destroying their ability to do business, destroying their ability to do relationships, destroying their trust. And so when they had a perspective shift of letting those things go and connecting the dots to go, wait a minute, maybe it wasn't that they destroyed me. Maybe it was that God rescued me from that, but wanted me to have a story that I had overcome so that I could be a light of hope for other people who had gone through the same thing. This week, we had a gentleman who 25 years ago, he was in the Oklahoma City bombing. He was a first responder. And his entire life, 6'6", 330 pounds, big man, passionate man, but unfortunately that passion was being buried underneath self-hate. And the reason why he lived with self-hate, which led to addiction, which led to anger, was because in that bombing, he had a moment that changed his life forever. He was going in and out. Their job as first responders were to first rescue the living, which meant they had to step over a lot of people who had lost their life. And going in and out of that building, he was going in to search and rescue living bodies and get them out as quickly as possible. Well, he was pulling out a body. Obviously, it was a very traumatic situation. He's pulling out a body, and he connects with a lady who screams out to him, help me. And he sees her eyes. And when he does, they connect. He says, I'll be right back. And he rushes out of the building with his team. And when he gets out of the building, his chief pulls him off that building and tells him to get away, to go to another location. And he never went back, for that woman, and the building collapsed on her. For 25 years, he lived with shame. He lived with self-hate. And he said, he lived with PTSD, couldn't get it out of his mind. This last week, I watched as he was in one of our coaching sessions, and he raised his hand and he said, I'm ready. I said, what are you ready for? And he said, I'm ready to let go. I said, and I'd never heard his story before. He had never told this part of his story. I said, what do you mean you're ready to let go? And he begins to tell me, 25 years ago, I was a first responder. He tells me the story, and here's the perspective shift that changed his entire life. He said, I'm ready to let go because this is killing me and holding me back from my greatness. That night, he began to realize that maybe it wasn't that I failed in that moment. Maybe it was actually that there was a God that saved me for something I was supposed to do in the future. And maybe her life, not that my life was better than hers, but maybe her time was done, but mine wasn't. And so I was yanked out of that building to be rescued so that today, now, as I'm approaching my greatest years of my life of strength and business development, maybe now I'm supposed to become a rescuer of people who are suffering with PTSD and trauma like I have. Maybe that wasn't my greatest use of rescuing back then. Maybe it was just a setup. And so perspective is everything. Maybe you've said you would never let go of something. You could never forgive someone. Well, what happens when you go through the brokenness and the perspective? Then you realize if I'm truly free, I can take greater risks. I can get back out. The pen is in my hand. My story is still unwritten. What are you willing to give up so that you can create the change you need at home, in your business, or in your wheel of success, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So I want you, and you may need to go back after this training. You may need to pause this training. If you're watching it live, you're going to have to go back. But it's important that you look at these things because this isn't just how to build a great business. We want you to build a great life. Vox, the voice direct, is how we can equip you to be a voice of hope, help, and healing to the world around you. And yes, we can use technology to get into the lives of more people every single day. So as you continue in your book, you're going to see that history leaves clues. I give a couple of other examples, and one of those examples we're going to talk about here in just a minute is Bethany Hamilton. But before we do that, let's look at what are 3 things, and this is a great way to start blaming effectively, right? What are 3 things that you are personally grateful for that happened last year? And maybe you start from today and you go back 12 months. But what are 3 things that you are incredibly grateful for? Now, remember, this is where we start to get a perspective of gratitude instead of an attitude of blaming other people for where we're at, or an attitude of how that last business treated you wrong or was a failure. How do you have gratitude for where you are today? List 3 things that you're grateful for. Go ahead and do it in your book as we go forward. The second thing is list 3 things that you hope will never happen again, right? This is just a real take on, all right, I never want to date single white men who are divorced and angry at their ex-wife and frustrated over politics. I don't know, I'm pulling something out of my head. So maybe that's a real deal. You're like, okay, I learned from that lesson. I never want to do, I'm a white girl, so that's not a bash on white men, just to let you know. But maybe you can look back over your life and go, you know what? I just learned something over the last 12 months. I never want to do that again. That knowledge is what gives you wisdom. Because you can look and not be damaged by your dots. Like Steve Jobs says, you can't connect except look back and connect the dots behind you. Well, that's how you turn from knowledge to wisdom. I look and I say, you know what? I never want to do that again. So I'm going to put that on my don't do list. Now, this is setting us up for writing clear and effective goals and habits. Because what we don't want to do is do habits on top of bad knowledge. So we're going to say, and I'm going to just run down this path with a man. I want a man, but I'm going to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. What is that? That's called insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So you could do the same thing in business. Maybe you have failed at every business you've been in. And instead of getting knowledge from what you did, and maybe it's not that every business is bad. Maybe no matter where you go, there you are. Maybe what needs to change is not the business model or the businesses around you, but maybe you need to change the world within you. Maybe this mindset reset is a great opportunity for you to say, you know what? I have blamed everybody, but today I take responsibility and today I change. So now you're moving into wisdom. What did those negative experiences teach you, and how can you grow from them? What can you do different? Because knowledge applied is wisdom. In other words, when you learn from your history, then you can apply wisdom by changing those modalities for your destiny. Go ahead and write those in your book as well. Now, I want to quickly talk about the story of Bethany Hamilton. And surely you remember her story. She was a young girl, I believe about the age of 13. She went out surfing one night, and her dream had always been to be a championship surfer, and she was well on track for that. She was an amazing surfer, went out on a midnight surf with her friends. And that night, just happened to be one of those rare occasions where she gets her arm bit off by a shark. Now, in that moment, as you can imagine, trauma, very difficult. You'll never unsee that. It is real life trauma that happened in her life. Arm is gone, almost bleeds to death. She goes through a process of depression. Who am I? This stole my dream. I'll never surf again. And I'm quite certain in those first few months, she was probably very depressed, to the probably point of suicidal depression, right? If you've heard any of the interviews, she does talk about that window of dropping into the abyss of depression. But something happened in her mindset, and she anchors it to her faith, that something said, I'm not finished with you yet. You might have had a major setback, and you might be without one of your limbs. But when you have a setback, don't take a step back, but get ready for your comeback, because sometimes a setback is actually a set up for your greatest days. How could that be for somebody who is going to be a world champion surfer and now loses their equilibrium, loses one of the most predominant ways of balance, which is being able to have both arms, and it's gone? How is she going to come back? That's the mindset reset. She didn't come back physically first. She had to come back mentally first and say, you know what? I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when, and I don't know who's going to help retrain me, but I will be a championship skier, and I will use this for greater good. And if you haven't seen Soul Surfer, you need to go watch the movie tonight. That'd be a great watch for you. But she obviously comes back. She relearns. She becomes an absolute epic championship swimmer. But even on top of that, who is a championship swimmer without an arm? It gave her a platform that she never would have had to have a movie. I mean, there's championship surfers all the time now that don't have movies about them. But a movie about her, books, husband, children. I mean, her life turned into this amazing Cinderella story. But it required a mindset reset, real trauma, not something that you say, well, that's just get over it. You don't get over a shark biting your arm off that easy. And most people, when they fail or they have trauma, they avoid going back to the source of that which caused them pain. For relationships, many people say, I'll never trust a woman again. I'll never trust a man again. I'll never trust a business again. I'm always going to live with guarded mindset because I'm never going to let people that deep because of what happened. I had a shark bite my heart out. But you know what? When you have a mindset reset, you do what Bethany Hamilton did, is you get back in the water and you relearn how to surf now with the story that you've been given. You learn how to live with the story of the trauma that you've experienced. You can't separate yourself. It happened. You can't undo that, whatever that is. But what you can do is hit the reset button and have a mindset reset that propels you in a whole new fashion. So let's look at number one here when we do the internal audit with this perspective. And this is the perspective of fear and moving forward. What fears or past mistakes or past trauma do you need to let go of so that you can embrace a new beginning? At the end of this certification, the goal is that you will be a brand new creation. You will look at your business, you'll look at your life and say, you know what? Today is the first day of the rest of my life. Today, I choose that what has been behind me will become a stepping stone of power to propel me into what I'm called to do. I'm going to move forward in my life. I'm going to see that my past is a setup to help me have knowledge so that I can have a better future. Number two, how can you use the traumas or failures of your past to stage a historical comeback? Maybe you do need to write a book. Maybe you do need to have a story. People don't buy products, they buy stories. When somebody asks me about Vox Direct and when we're out traveling and they say, well, what do you do? And one of the things, I talk about the nonprofit organization. And when I talk about that, I tell my story of going through suicidal depression and divorced when I was young and having been a country music singer. And if that's what story needs to be told in that moment, I tell that story, not from a point of pain, but from a point of power, because my failure, my trauma gives me context in that setting. If I'm talking about Vox Direct, they say, what do you do? And I say that I'm an executive coach with Vox Direct. Well, what is Vox Direct? I don't just tell them about how they can have a texting platform. I talk to them about how this is a revolutionary company that's raising up men and women to be their boots on the street, because Vox means voice. And Vox allows small business owners to be able to have a winning edge when it comes to their voice technologies, like the phone systems, the redirects, the virtual assistants. It gives them all those tools. But on top of that, it also gives them texting. And there's no other platform that gives both voice and text. So really, what our leaders are doing is coming along small business owners and giving them not just a hand out, but a hand up to be able to play in the big leagues with big businesses that in the past they couldn't do it because it was too expensive, too difficult, too confusing. So this is a company that's creating technologies that makes it a win-win-win for small business owners. And I have the privilege of being a part of their tribe, being able to be an executive coach for their field. Well, you know what? That's a lot better than just talking about a widget on an app. And when you do that, how do I do that? I use the perspective of the things I've come through. I'll use the stories of what has happened in business for me to connect with that person. Risk is, what new techniques or habits do you need to learn how to use in order to move from where you've been to the life of your dreams? Obviously, Bethany Hamilton had to learn how to surf again without an arm. So you might need to learn how to sell again. You might need to learn how to connect again. You might need to learn how to have better communication, how to look people in the eye again. Maybe your backbone was broken of your emotions and you don't look people in the face anymore. You don't look them in the eye anymore. Maybe that is a technique or a habit that you need to learn in order to be more effective moving forward. Maybe you got so beat down by no's that you just haven't even wanted to make the ask anymore. Maybe you need some new techniques and new habits to move you forward. Let's do this real quick. Let's take a break. And in your book, you're going to find on page 96, 97, there's going to be a wheel. I call this the wheel of success. And we're just going to do a reality check, a self audit. I want you to look at that wheel right there. And I want you to rank yourself today. And be authentic, be transparent. Don't give yourself a 10 in finances if you're not a 10 in finances. So basically 10 is I'm off the charts. I'm amazing. You're Bo Derek running down the beach. That's for all of you who are older. You know what that is. You're a 10 out of 10, right? A 1 means that you're sucking wind. Like you're barely making it in your faith. You're barely making it in your career. You're barely making it. You don't feel free. You feel in bondage. So a 1 means that you're failing. A 10 means that you are crushing it to an almost level of perfect execution. So go ahead and go through those. Look at the area of faith. Where are you in your faith? Maybe it's non-existent. If you don't believe in something, you will fall for anything. We've heard that many, many times. If you don't believe in something. So my faith, I have a very strong faith in God. Faith is the number one part of my hierarchy of values. And so it is very important on a regular basis, daily basis, that I spend time elevating my consciousness, my spiritual maturity, trying to have a oneness with God, trying to really operate in a place where I hear, I think, I do. People can hit me, they can beat me, they can slap me, and I'm going to turn the other cheek, not because of my career or my friends or my family, but because of my faith. So that is an area for me personally that I spend a lot of time in order to be able to have a high level of peace and profits. Look at finance. What are you doing right now in finance? Well, how this is a self audit. This isn't where you want to be. This is a self audit of where you are now. Freedom. Do you really feel like you have time freedom? Do you really feel like you can get up when you want to get up and do what you want to do? Or is life still saying to you, you know what, you work for me? When you have a place of freedom, you live in a place of abundance. Now, many people can have less money than anyone in the world and have more freedom than some of the CEOs I've coached in the past that have had ridiculous amount of money, but their life is falling apart and they have no freedom. They're bound to their job. They're bound to their lies. They're bound to their narcissism. Freedom doesn't mean just money. Freedom means that you walk in a place where you are not subject to the emotions or the things of this earth, but you're concentrating and you're truly living in a place of freedom. Maybe it is time freedom. Maybe you've been able to build enough residual income that you are able to live in a place where you can do what you want to do when you want to do it. Financial freedom means that money's working for you. You've got investments out there that are actually working, so you don't have to. So where are you in a place of freedom? Do that on each area of the will and be very transparent with yourself, because we're going to come back to this in a few minutes. Now, if you're watching this live, we're not going to stop, so you might want to come back to this later. But if you're watching this right now, I'd encourage you, if you're watching it recorded, then just push pause so that you can really take time to go through this reality check. Okay, now looking at each one of those areas that you rated yourself, what is something you can do in each of those areas that could equate to a 1% growth each day? So a lot of people look at these areas and they're like, oh, well, I got to get more fit. So what do? They go join a gym and then they try to do everything at 99% in their first week. And that's why resolutions don't work and usually only last for 30 to 90 days. 90 would be long. Usually it's 30 days. Why? Because they're trying to eat the elephant in all one big bite versus realizing, and this is what we're going to talk about, the difference in goal setting and habit formation is that 1% growth every day means you're creating systems and not just concepts. A goal is a concept. A goal is an idea of something you want to happen. But 1% growth each day is the sign of an evolving system or modality. It's creating new habits that fit into a new structure or way of living your life. So when you look at finance freedom, what is something you could do to grow 1% in finance each day? It could be, instead of having 2 coffees at Starbucks, you have 1. So your system changes. You don't drive to Starbucks twice. You do it once. Maybe it's making your own coffee. So would that change your system? Yes, especially if you're used to stopping at a coffee shop on your way to work. You've created a system or a modality or a habit of going to that coffee shop, but really it is not improving your finances. What it's doing is it's an addiction, probably, that you love that coffee so much, but it doesn't mean you have to have that coffee. It means you need to reprogram what coffee you have so that you can put 1% growth into your finances every single day. You may say, well, Stacey, I have to have that coffee. If I don't have that coffee, I ain't making no money because I will not wake up. Well, maybe that bounces over to fitness then. Why are you so tired? What is it that's causing you to feel drained? And if you're having to rely on chemical inducement in order to have energy, well, let's just jump over to fitness then. What could you do to get 1% growth each day? Well, maybe it's that you need to just start going for a 30-minute walk once a day. Not only will that help you in fitness, that will help you in family, freedom, friends, career, faith, and finance. Why? That's your white space. I talk to people all the time who say, I'm going, I'm 10xing my life, I'm doing, and then I come home and I've got to be with my kids, and they haven't created any what I call white space. White space, for example, in marketing is when you don't just keep talking, but you actually allow a moment for your creativity, or your website, for example. Like this has white space. You got blue space at the top, and you have white space. What happens in white space? Things look a little clearer. So in your white space, that might be a time of meditation. It might be a time of breathing. 1% growth each day could be spending 5 minutes a day when stress happens. Take moments and say, it's time for a mindset reset. And you stop and you inhale love, joy, peace, patience, everything that brings in goodness to your life. You meditate on that. Some of you might meditate on scripture. Some of you might meditate on a word, whatever it is, but you meditate on something that is good and lovely. You breathe it in. And then you exhale stress, anxiety, narcissism, control, fear, all those things that are our lowest base human value, devalues, and you exhale them out. Do that for 5 minutes. That's a 1% growth every day. I assure you, you'll start to have white space that'll make things more clearer. Instead of fighting with your relationships, stop yelling at each other for a moment. Say, you know what? I just need a 5-minute mindset reset. Go in the other room and meditate on love. Meditate on forgiveness. Breathe in and then breathe out whatever it is that's got you, your panties in a wad, whatever's got you so messed up. Take time. White space is good space. 1% growth. I could take any one of those areas. There's something you could be doing every single day to get better. Another story in your book, when we move forward, and I don't want you to skip through this if you're watching this on replay. I really want you to stop and take time to really think about what could you do. Look at each one of those areas on page 98 and write out something you can do in every single area that'll give you a 1% growth each day. Okay. When we look at the story of Dick Hoyt and his son, Rick, I'm sure you've heard the story. It's gone around the world, but really it's so worthy in this moment, because what it leads us to, before we go into goal setting, it leads us into a higher thinking called why. Why are you wanting to have a business that succeeds? Why are you wanting to have a marriage or a relationship? Why are you wanting to have children? The why behind the what usually is where impact and legacy are anchored to. So if you're really wanting to do more than just, I don't know of anybody I've ever coached that's gotten to the end of their life or that will get to the end of their life, and they say, man, I wish I would have come out with one more product. I wish we could have executed on that initiative over in Asia. I wish we could have done that. No, what do they say at the end of their life? I wish I could have spent more time with my family. I wish I could have fulfilled my why. So Dick Hoyt, his son was born spastic quadriplegic, who also had cerebral palsy. Major diagnosis to most people. This would be a catastrophic diagnosis for your child. And a lot of people would just institutionalize them. Some people would just think that is a worthless life. Rick, who is the son, had his mental capacities, but he was trapped inside of a human body that was dysfunctional. So he was in a state of being confined to a life that he didn't choose, but that he was bound to and had no form of expression. Now, his dad obviously loved his son. In 1977, even though he had his own limitations, Rick was able to communicate to his dad, and he used his computer to tell his father that he wanted to run in a 5-mile benefit race. Now, obviously, Rick couldn't run. So that was an impossibility that most people would say, that's ridiculous. Can't do that. But he was saying that what he wanted to do was do something that wasn't about him, that it was about a friend, somebody that he saw, a lacrosse player that he felt he could do something about it by maybe raising money for him. This lacrosse player had been paralyzed in an accident. Dick was putting two and two together and realized, wait a minute, my son is asking to run, which means he needs legs. And science can't do that for him. So the resolve is I can let this depress me. Oh, I can't believe my son and he'll never do it. Or I can mindset, reset, think, how can I collaborate with my son in order to do something bigger than he's even thinking and even bigger for myself? I can create a why in my life because I love my son so much. I am going to be his hands and his feet. So obviously, there was a lot of equipment, there was a lot of planning, there was a lot, strategy. If you looked at this as business development, there was a lot that went into the picture that you're looking at on your screen. And it was difficult. It's not like Dick was young. And it wasn't like his son was light or young. This was a grown man in a wheelchair being pushed by an older man through the streets, through the roads, through the dirt. And it was grueling. But Dick did it. And he pushed through his physical limitations and said, I'm going to do this because I want my son to live the life he dreams about. And this is the dream. Later, Rick typed a message to his father that said, Dad, when I'm running with you, it feels like I'm not handicapped. That right there is called a shared ecosystem. In other words, they're sharing resources. Dick is sharing his legs and his arms with his son, and his son is sharing his passion and his vision with his dad to do something more. And because they were willing to have a little bit of a reset, major reset, they were able to do something that went around the world with a message of hope, help, healing, forgiveness, unification, collaboration that nobody else on the planet had ever done. And the question is right now, maybe you're not supposed to do it alone. Maybe your why is connected to a team or a company or people that are going to come alongside you, share ecosystem value and say, you know what, together two is better than one. Dick and his son have completed over 1,100 races, 72 marathons, 6 Ironman triathlons. And as you know, their story has gone around the world. Dick ran with a cause that was much bigger than himself. It was bigger than running. It was bigger than wheelchair sponsorships. It was bigger than money. He established a compelling why that drove him beyond the physical pain and limitations of his own body so that he could become his son's legs and create a message of hope to millions. And so my question is, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to reach your goals and live a lasting legacy? What is it right now? And maybe it's sacrificing some emotions. Maybe it's sacrificing time. Maybe you're going to have to do some training. Maybe you're going to have to invest in some tools. Maybe you're going to have to go out and hire a coach. What is it that you're willing to, maybe you're going to have to sacrifice American Idol. Maybe you're going to have to sacrifice Monday Night Football. Maybe you're going to have to sacrifice that pushing of the alarm button in the morning that you do because it's so comfortable. Maybe you're going to have to sacrifice in order to reach your goals and leave the legacy that you say you want to leave. Well, the perspective is what's something that you've heard either internally or by other people outside of you that's tried to stop you from accomplishing your dreams. Rick and Dick Hoyt, they were constantly told, you can't do this. This is impossible. Dick and his wife were told that, you need to institutionalize Rick. He's going to be too much of a burden. You're going to lose your life and your value if you constantly try to help him. They had to break those mindsets, those internal and external voices, because they would have stopped them from creating a true, amazing legacy that other people have been so touched by and gone past their own limitations because they saw them fight through. What do you need to shift in your perspective that has tried to stop you in your past? And finally, what's your why? What drives you to push beyond your limits so that change can occur in your life? I want you to think about it right now. You might take the back of a piece of paper and just really write out the words that your why might be, I want to leave an imprint on the world. I want to have 100 homes for transitional living for people who are coming out of homelessness. I want to be able to provide a inheritance for my children. I want to be able to create a company that finds a solution to autism. I want to create a cure for cancer. What is your why? If your why is I want to be successful, you got to go deeper than that. Why do you want to be successful? What does that speak to you? Is it so that you can take care of your family? Go bigger than goals. Because as we step into goal setting, the internal audit allows you to get more authentic with yourself so that you can truly, truly begin to build vision upon a life and a business that you're going to love. I have raised up a lot of businesses. I've created a lot of downlines. I've done a lot of sales. I found eventually that it didn't leave me in a place that I actually loved. I still had a hunger for ministry. I still had a hunger for saving and rescuing women and men out of addiction. I had to do a mindset reset. And in 2017, that's exactly what I did. I stepped out of an industry that I loved. I stepped out of a place of great success and grandeur so that I could step into a place and say, you know what? It is not about the awards anymore for me. It is about the impact I can create by partnering with people who have passion, a destiny, and a calling upon their life. And I want to now insert myself only into places that actually lead to my why. And so if you can create, your why will be like your North Star. North Star should guide you. North Star should lead you to a place called best. And if you don't create that big overarching why, maybe that is your mission statement. What is your mission statement? Your mission statement and your I am statement will be closely linked together. My I am statement is I am a warrior sent to awaken sleeping warriors to step into their divine mandate and advance the kingdom of God. So that is my personal why statement. Everything I do is to awaken people to get out of their non-conscious behaviors, meaning that they're walking around like zombies in a system. I want to wake them up. Many of them are warriors that have fallen asleep. I believe that I'm on this planet to awaken people to step into their divine purpose. And when I'm able to do that, whether I'm doing it through a technology company, whether I'm doing that through a direct sales company, whether I'm doing that at a church, whether I'm doing that at the Boys and Girls Club, it doesn't matter where you put me. I can fulfill my purpose, my divine mandate doing that because my why got bigger than any kind of rank or position. Now, when we look at that and we think about what does that mean as it relates to Vox Direct? For the next 45 minutes, we're going to jump into looking at strategic goal setting and how that can impact. So go ahead and take a drink. I don't encourage you to take a break. We're not going to take a break. We're going to keep going. But if you need to, just jump right back in and keep watching. But when we talk about goal setting, which is our next part of this phase, we're going to look at goal setting a little different. I believe in goal setting. I think obviously it's been proven that people without goals do not succeed nearly as well as people who do set goals. So let's talk about goal setting as 101 ideation. Okay. So we're going to talk about how to create a life and business you love. It's going to be important to have some concepts of where you want to go. If you don't, then it's like going outside and shooting arrows without a target. If you don't have a target or a bullseye, you could hurt people. You can be shooting arrows into the wind and kill a dog. You want to make sure that you have a good idea of where you want to head. But that's just not enough. So when we talk about goal setting, we want to make sure that where your goal is lined up with the values of your why, the values of the core of who you are, so that when you get there, you actually like the building you had your ladder leaning upon, right? So if you have your ladder leaning upon something that you really don't love, you're going to get to the top and go, you know what? I sold a lot of product, but I really didn't do the thing I love the most, which is changing lives. So can you do both? Absolutely. But you need to have your core values in place first. So when we think about Vox Direct, what if you became a national director and you have this great business and you're walking across the stage and you've been able to help a lot of people, but your real dream was to start orphanages in Africa? You're going to get to the top of that ladder and you're still going to feel like there's something missing. So, what we want to do is let's go ahead and define what that North Star is so that as you're climbing the ladder, everything is getting you closer to your North Star. Now, there's a lot of people who just climb ladders and then they move their ladder to another building and another building and another building, and they make money, but they don't find happiness. They create systems, but they don't find peace. The North Star is going to lead you to a life and business that you love. Basically, it's what matters most. Core values based goal setting isn't just launching out and saying, I want to create a career. It's, I want to create a career that leads me to my why or leads me to my North Star. So let's go back to the wheel. And even though I identified some values that we did a self audit on, what I want you to do now is I want you to look at that um, chart right there. And I want you to think of what are your top 7 core values? What are the things that matter most to you? Now, if we were coaching privately, I would tell you that a lot of people say, well, my number 1 value is God. And my number 2 value are my children. And my number 3 value is my husband. I would go, wah, 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 wah. Why? That tells me immediately that there's issues inside of your marriage. Because if you put your children before your marriage, then you're going to have a bad reflection of what relationship is all about. However, for this setting, I don't want to judge that. I don't want to be your coach on that level. I want to coach you to core values. So we're going to look at these as equals. We're not going to rank them as what's most important. You can do that later. And then if you want to hire a coach to talk about what that does in your world of leading to your North Star and how that affects your happiness, you can do that. But for right now, let's just talk, what are 7 top core values in no particular order on the wheel? Go ahead and write those out. Now, after you've done that, I want you to think about what authentic, real roadblock could be put in the way of you living according to those values. So let's say one of your top 7 is I value marriage, right? I value my marriage. What could come in the way? Well, anything else on that wheel, right? My kids could come in the way because they're demanding, or they're not, they've got attitudes and they're bringing frustration into the house. Or it could be my work is constantly demanding more from me, or it could be finances. Finances aren't good. So all of a sudden it's like a snowball effect. But I want you to look at these on the outside of the wheel, write out what could come in the way of you living according to those values. Now, in your book, you've actually got a spot there that you can write. I actually encourage you, not only in that would be general things that you could write, but go ahead and be specific on each pie of the wheel. What is something that you see maybe right now that is a real roadblock that could keep you from having that core value solid and set in place? Okay, now with that in mind, we're going to jump into goal setting. Now, you've all heard of SMART goals. We're going to look at it a little bit differently because I believe that SMART goals are good goals, but SMART goals should lead you to better habits, right? So in order to truly have SMART goals, you've got to be able to understand habit formation. So we're going to break this down as we look into SMART goals. And James Clear of Atomic Habits, if you haven't listened to or read that book, it'd be really good for you to read the book because there is a difference between goals and habits. He said, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems or habits. Now, let me explain what that means, and I'll give you the real big Cliff Notes version of that book. Let's just think about right now in the political race. Do you think everybody has the goal to win? I think we'd all agree that you don't spend $500 million on your campaign and then drop out because you never wanted to win in the first place. They all want to win. They all have the same goal. Let's think about Super Bowl. You think the teams that are getting ready for next year's football season are all excited about winning. They all have the goal to be a champion. Yes, right now in basketball, whatever season it happens to be in when you're watching this video, do they all share the same big, audacious goal of winning the championship? Yes. Do all parents, like when they have their first child and they love that child, they want that child to be successful? Yes, that's called winning. We want our child to be healthy, strong, wealthy, great relationships. Every parent has that goal. They want the best for their family. So why is it then that outcomes are different for certain people? Well, that's the difference between goals and habits. The difference is the daily systems you set in place in order to help you reach your goals. So the daily systems would be those modalities or those habits you've put in, the structure, the time frame, the dedication, the execution, the action steps that you do in order to achieve that goal. So for me, when I was a little girl, back to basketball, my father understood habits. He didn't teach it like that. He called it goal setting, but he understood that I can have a goal, which my goal was to be an all-state basketball player at that time. And then I wanted to be the first white girl on the Harlem Globetrotters. And he understood that there's two really big obstacles that I have to overcome. Number one, I'm a skinny white girl that is like very, very, very tiny. And all my girlfriends who are playing are much bigger than me. And in my back of my mind, I just felt like my sisters had an edge. So he said, you're going to have to work a little harder. So we're going to set some systems in place. When they work an hour, you're going to work 2 hours. If they shoot free throws and they leave the court, whether or not they made the hole, you're going to leave the court when you put 25 through the hole. Suddenly, he began to help me create systems. Back then, maybe I didn't appreciate it like I do today, that allowed my habit formation to be set so that my outcomes were better than other people. That's why you hire a great football coach, because they have a way of putting systems into place that maybe the former coach didn't have, that creates better modalities or habits in the team so that they can have a better outcome towards the championship. The same thing that happens when you're raising children is, this next week, we're going to be starting a whole new series of talking about our personal life. And Larry and I are going to be talking about how we've raised two amazing children who are very successful, doing what they do. They love God. They're very peaceful, giving, generous. So how do you do that? It's not because we're great. It's certainly not because we're perfect, but we put systems in place that formed habits in our family that create specific outcomes. We actually didn't do a lot of things that other people do in our family so that it would create a different type of system than the rest of the world, so that we could have better habits of what we did spend our time on, so that our outcomes would be significantly different. So you could look at any area of your life right now. Habits are the daily operations that you need to set in place in order to achieve your big, audacious goals. So again, I really encourage that book, Atomic Habits. I think it'll be a great read for everybody. But let's jump in now as we look at setting SMART goals. What does that look like? And then we're going to look at how does that play into habit formation. So the S in SMART goals is to be specific. Saying I want a new car is not a specific goal. Saying I want to have a black F-350 King Ranch that has the ability to tow 20,000-pound house on wheels. I'd like it to be a year 2017 or newer, and I would like it to have less than 25,000 miles on it. That is a specific goal. That was my husband's goal, by the way. So what is specifically that you want that you don't currently have? Now, let's go back to that big black F-350 King Ranch that he wanted to pull a 20,000 pound house called a fifth wheel, and he wanted to take it around the United States. Why is that significant? Well, if it's just about the truck, then it become a limited goal. But let's look at the bigger picture. Is it attached to a core value? Yes, because he's wanting his family to experience being able to be more generous by giving to communities around the United States. So for him, the truck is not about it being a Ford or it being big or it being black or it being, muscle or having ego attached to it. It's about it has a purpose that will get us to a different location or a different why than maybe most people would know. So he wants the truck. He has a why, which is to be able to be more generous to people around the United States, to reach more people, to travel so that we don't have to be locked in a city and in a house and in a suburbia. But we want to take our children, we want to show them the world, but we want to show them how to be light and hope and take opportunity to people around the United States. Is he specific? Absolutely. What is the time frame for accomplishment? He said the time frame is by the end of 2019. Okay, so why is the goal so important to you? So this is for you. What do you want? So let's just say I want to be a national director, and this is a specific goal. This doesn't mean this is your entire life goal. This is one specific goal. Maybe this is the specific goal you have for Vox Direct. I want to be a national director by June of 2020, and I want to be able to do it because I want to be able to reach as many people as possible and the voice of hope, help, and healing to others. Okay, when is the time frame, and why is it important to you? Does it align with your core values so that when you get there, you feel like you've truly accomplished the outcome of your why? Okay, so that's the S. Be specific. Now, when you do this, you're going to do this in a minute. I'm going to show you, we've provided for you in your book to set SMART goals in every one of those 7 areas of your life. Okay. So specific. Number 2 is measurable. A dream without a measurable plan and new habits that support it is nothing more than wishful thinking. I used to say, a dream without a plan is nothing but wishful thinking. I've changed that quote to redefine it because I believe a dream with a plan is still wishful thinking. A dream without a plan and the habits or system to execute the plan is nothing but wishful thinking. When you have the plan and you have the modalities in place and the daily habits in place, you get so much closer to the reality of the possibility of that dream coming true. So let's consider the goal of national director again. You want to be national director by June. If you're 6 months away, which I think we're not 6 months away, so just imagine we're doing this as if this is 6 months away, you should be able to measure what needs to be done quarterly, monthly, weekly, and even daily. So let's say we have 6 months to your due date, whatever your due date is. If there's 6 months, then we recognize that that is 6 months of approximately 30 days per month. And every 30 days has 7 days in a week, right? So when we begin to, this is called reverse engineering. We're going to show you how reverse engineering helps your goals become measurable. Then you can do the daily habits necessary in order to execute. Okay. A is attainable. Now, if you said, I want to be national director by the end of this month, I would say unless you are going to live, eat, breathe, not sleep, and unless you're planning on talking to literally hundreds of people a day, that's just not a realistic goal because that's a lofty goal. So do you change your goal and go, well, I'm never going to be national director? No, you just change the time frame. Give yourself the proper amount of time based on the habits that you're willing to put into it in order for that to be accomplished. So this is where you make sure that your goals are realistic, are doable. even if it means that you have to adjust your daily habits. So there's two ways to attain a measurable goal. Let's just say you have 6 months to achieve an audacious goal of becoming a national director. Let's wheel back, because we encourage you to do in 90 days become a director, right? It's a doable goal, but it is still what I would call a warrior, audacious, uh, big goal, right? Because it means that you're going to have to be very focused that in 90 days you want to be a director. So if you look at that and you say in 90 days, I want to be a director, then you've got to look at, okay, over the course of the next 90 days or 3 months, what could distract me? Oh, shoot, I've got my kid's graduation and I've got that wedding I've got to go to. And oh, shoot, I really, really wanted to go to that NASCAR event. And next thing you know, unless you're going to turn those events into recruiting opportunities or sales opportunities, you have a lot of realistic roadblocks. So you might have to look at that goal and say, you know what, I actually need 4 months or I need 5 months because I'm looking at my goals. Or, you know what, I might have to adjust my daily habits. I might not get to go to that wedding. Or NASCAR might have to wait because I deeply want to be creating a residual income that gives me a back-end security plan. So whatever the goal is that you set, make sure that it's attainable. I mean, if you want to lose 50 pounds in 5 months, but you don't want to change your eating habits, you don't want to change your sleeping habits, you don't want to change your attitude, you don't want to do a mindset reset, wah, wah, wah. That's wishful thinking. That is not smart goal setting. All right. So no matter what the goal is, though, let's go back to 50 pounds. Just because 50 pounds seems big, and let's say you get your 1 month away, don't go, oh, I'm never going to lose weight. No, just change the date. Don't change the standard. Either change your modalities or change your due date. Okay. R is relevant. Ask yourself, is this goal relevant to my core values? Am I really willing and going to want to pay the price when the going gets tough of what it's going to take to get to that goal? Am I really willing to go through the law of the price tag? Because everybody wants leadership, but not everybody's willing to pay the price of leadership. So the question is, will this goal get me closer to my North Star, my why, or to a life and a business that I really love? And if the answer is yes, great. That is a relevant goal. The final one is time-bound goals. Now, time-bound is different than measurable, because time is about the window that you have on a daily basis, about time blocking. It's about the ability for you to be able to execute in a time frame what you've set to do. So they're like having a very, very, very clear bullseye. They give you direction, but they also give you boundaries. Without time frame attached to your goals, then it's really wishy-washy. You're not setting yourself up for a specific goal date, a specific due date. Why is it so great that we know in 9 months a woman's going to have a baby? Because it's expectation, it's execution, it's getting the room ready, it's making sure that the diapers are bought, it's making sure that you have that baby shower, all of the things that go into it, so that when that due date arrives, you are ready, willing, and able to be a great parent. Now, when you don't have time-based goals, then what you're doing is saying, oh, I should lose weight. I should get out of debt. I should spend more time with my family. I should go out and share Vox Direct with 10 people today. I should go be on that call this weekend. I should be able to meet with my team. All you're doing is shoulding all over yourself. You got to move out of the should mindset and get into a place where you say, I must, because I'm locked and loaded and dedicated that now is the time for this to happen. And I have a time-based goal that I'm going to reach. So let's look at this now. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. I want you to think about those. And we're going to go through each one of these areas. Now, you're not going to have enough time probably to be incredibly specific. So you might want to come back to this and look this over and really go through this training say, does this align with my North Star? Does this align with my value system? Does this align with my why, or is this just something I feel like I'm supposed to put in there? Um, maybe your desire is to outlive your children, and that's why nutrition is going to be really important to you. Maybe you want to see your grandbaby. Maybe you're not really healthy right now. Maybe people around you have had very ill lives, or maybe had a lot of sickness in their life, and you realize unless you're going to be another statistic in your family, you're going to have to make some adjustments. So you look at your fitness and you say, you know what, I want to be there for my children, so I have to make some goals. So that's a why. The why is that you want to have longevity for your family. So that now brings you back to your SMART goals. Once your why is set in place, you can come back and go, okay, so I want to have good fitness because I want to have this why, but now here's what I'm willing to do on a daily basis. So let's look at finance. So be specific. Where would you like to be financially? Now, maybe you're setting this as a 12-month goal. So at the end of the year, and this might be a real simple way to do it, you could set this as a monthly goal. You could do both. You could have short-term and long-term, just come back, or maybe even split the page there and you say, you know what, I'm going to do a short-term goal and I'm going to do a long-term goal. So maybe your short-term goal is to earn $500 a month. Maybe your long-term goal is to earn a six-figure income. So you look at that short-term goal, be specific, and put as much around that short-term goal. Don't just say $500 a month, right? Maybe you look and say, you know what, I would like to hit the rank of director in 90 days. I'd like a minimum of $500 residual money coming in every single month, no matter what. Obviously, you can go our deep dive compensation plan, and you can see how that could possibly be available to you with the right effort. And then you might also say, you know what, but I want to look out that in X amount of months, I want to be making X amount of money. So you might have a short-term and a long-term goal. Have a goal date, right? Remember, not only be specific, but let it be time-bound. So give yourself a goal date, then do the research like we said. Go back and say, is this possible? What am I going to have to do that? And then what are 3 actionable steps I will take towards achieving this goal? So again, this week I was on the call with one of the B12, and they gave me an audacious goal of where they want to be in their business. And I said, how many people are you willing to talk to in order for that to be a reality? So we went with numbers. I said, let's say you have a 10% execution capability and you need to have, let's say you need to have 3 new business partners immediately this week. Well, if you need 3 new business partners and you're operating at a 10% ratio of effectiveness, then that means you're going to need to talk to 30 people, put 30 people in your funnel on the business side. We weren't talking yet about customers. I'm just talking to him about business partners or consultants. So you need to talk to 30 people in order to get those 3. Now, if you get 3 out of the first 3, hey, that's great. You got a 100% closing ratio. But if you go to an average of 10% because your speed and accuracy isn't great yet, just know that you got to increase frequency in order for speed and accuracy to go up. So maybe you say, okay, 3 actionable steps is 1, I'm going to talk to 30 people this week. That might mean that you're making a lot of phone calls, you're reaching out on Facebook, maybe you're wanting to invest into getting involved in Chamber of Commerce, maybe you've got some groups that you've been involved in that you want to start contacting people. Maybe you're going to go back through your list. 3 actionable steps. I'm going to talk to 30 people. The next is I'm going to get coaching to help me be specific. So you contact maybe your upline leader, or you tap into these kind of calls and these webinars. You say, I'm going to be dedicated. I'm never missing a call again. I'm never missing a webinar again. I'm never missing a training again. I'm going to take, because those are going to help me. And number 3, maybe you've got to invest in some tools. You know what? I'm going to get branded. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get some t-shirts. I'm going to get a hat. I'm going to make sure that I got business cards. And so you find 3 actionable steps that will lead you closer to that particular financial goal. And they can be whatever. I'm just throwing examples out, but you can see that there's space there in your book that you can actually write a lot of things in there, but be specific. Well, then you're going to look at the next area of your life, which is fitness. Do the exact same thing in fitness. Be very specific with what you want. You know, there was a time when Larry and I were I was a high level athlete in basketball. He was in football, and then he went into bodybuilding. We were in the gym all the time, and we had very specific goals. And it was always for him about percentage of, that his BMI, that his body mass index was elite, and that he lived at about 8% body fat, which was ridiculous. He was like a ripped, big old piece of muscle. And so that we lived at that. And I was training for some events. And so I was literally in a place where I was down to 10% body fat, which is crazy. It's not even healthy for a woman to live at that. But we had these specific goals, and our why was because we wanted to be elite athletes, right? Well, then our life shifted and we wanted to have kids, and we wanted to have fun. And we didn't want to have that kind of pressure. So our goals changed and became more specific towards time freedom, peace. We were no longer really about being elite athletes as much as we were about living a life that we loved. And so now all of a sudden, like, movies and popcorn is like a memory. We love that. We don't look at it and go, "Oh, that's cheating." It's not cheating. It's investing and sitting up with our loved one, or for me, it's with Larry and the kids. And my daughter, last night we're watching a movie, and she brings each one of us an ice cream sandwich. And it was late at night. And man, if my goal was to be an elite athlete and to be chiseled and 10% body fat, I would have said, "No, baby, I'm not going to eat that." But you know what? In that moment, my goal was to enjoy my family, be there. So you want to look and make sure, what is your core value? Our value of being maybe a little self-interested, maybe a little narcissistic about our bodies, which we were in our younger days, it's changed for us. So our value system changed. What matters most to us changed. So I'm 50 now. I don't have the same North Star physically that I did when I was in my 20s or my 30s, when I was winning contests. So you want to make sure, again, don't let someone else, don't let Peloton or the local gym dictate your goal, because you can grind in the gym and like be busting it and sweating and be miserable. It needs to be the life and business you love. Let it be set according to your goals. You know what? When you do that, it's amazing. Like I have a whole training on, it's called the Ultimate Body Makeover, that psychologically having your fitness goals aligned with your values will really give you greater success in your fitness goals than anything else, because it's psychological first, then comes the body. So mind, body, and spirit is the deepest core of who you are. If that thing's messed up, then it's all messed up. So be specific in your fitness. Have a goal date. Maybe your goal is that you want to be able to lose a few pounds. You want to be able to have the energy to go exercise with your kids or go skateboarding or whatever your kids happen to do. Maybe your goal is that you do want to get ready for a bodybuilding competition. Maybe your goal is that you really do want to join a tennis league and be a championship tennis player. It needs to be based upon your value system. Then set a goal date, and then 3 actionable steps you're going to take to achieve those goals. So I play tennis. I love tennis. And so a couple of years ago, I got involved in a tennis group, and my goal was that there were women that had played for 40 years. They were elite athletes. And my goal actually wasn't that I wanted to win anything. My goal was that I just wanted to be able to hang with them. I wanted to be able to win some serves. I wanted to be able to. So it wasn't that I was pushing myself to a point of, I've got to own this court, although I always feel that. But it was that I want to enjoy this because this is a sport that I can play until I'm 80 or 90. I can play this forever as long as my body continues to hold up. So be specific, create actionable steps. I started playing tennis with some girls that were just average tennis players. And then I moved up and I started playing with girls that were better. So actionable steps. I had to get myself some new tennis rackets. I had to get myself some balls and tennis shoes. I learned that shoes matter. I had to, of course, get myself some cute outfits, but those are actionable steps. Why were the outfits important? Because when you show up, whether it's tennis or on the ski slope, girls, you got to look good because that's part of the fun. So you set those specific actionable steps you need in order to be successful. Why is fitness important to your Vox Direct business? Because if you don't like who you are not going to share that effectively in that business effectively with people that are around you. Okay, going finally, family. Do this in every single area. You're going to do this with your family. What is the goal with your family? What is a goal date to achieve that outcome? What are actionable steps that you can take towards achieving that goal? Maybe it's that you just want to have more family time where people don't yell and scream at each other. Have a specific goal date. Don't say, well, this weekend it's going to happen. No, make it attainable. You know what? By the end of 2020, I want our family to come into Christmas together in a state of unity and love. So you give yourself a few months to work that out. You become strategic. You play a little chess in your mind with your family, knowing that a couple of them might be cantankerous, and just begin to get some white space in your life and think of strategies on how you can be more effective in what you're doing in your life. Set some actionable steps. Maybe it's once a week creating date night with your spouse, or maybe it's once a month making sure that you have date with your daughter or date with your son or whoever it is. Create those actionable steps. Do the same with friends and collaborations and people that you're with. Maybe you don't have friend goals. Maybe you need to have friend goals. You need to set some goal dates. Maybe you need to start being more generous with the people that are around you so that you create friends. Remember, alignment precedes assignment. Friends are important. Show me someone's friends and I'll tell you what they're going to be in the future. So if you don't have any friends, I'll tell you, you're going to have to redefine that, because it gets really lonely the older you get if you're not surrounded by a community. So friends are really important. Faith. What are your faith goals? What are actionable steps you can take to achieve that faith goal moving forward? And then, of course, freedom. Freedom is such an important place for you to set a goal, but not just goals. Remember, the actionable steps are the habits you're going to put in place in order to have freedom. Larry and I, we knew that when we hit 50, Larry hasn't hit it yet. It's coming. When we hit 50, we wanted to begin to transition out of big house, big life, big cars, lots of stuff. And we wanted to be able to be mobile so that we could go and help people anywhere, that we could be available to God, to be able to just say yes. If he says, you know what, I want you to go up to New York and I want you to just spend some time up there with the people. We didn't know that at that time when we set that goal, there wasn't even Vox Direct in place. We didn't know that Larry would be stepping into leadership of this company and that would be important. But we set a goal that we wanted to have freedom from being owned by a big house that had big responsibilities and lots of cleaning and lots of maintenance. And we wanted to get into a place where we would live tiny, but give big. So we started that plan. We were very specific that we wanted to hit it by the time we were 50 years old. I hit 50 December 8th of 2019. And we had our house up for sale for a year and a half, getting ready for this. It didn't sell. It didn't sell. It didn't sell. It didn't sell. We downscaled everything in our life for this plan, but it still hadn't sold on my birthday. We took our house off the market about 3 weeks before that because it had been on the market for so long. We needed to refresh the market. On my birthday, December 8th, we get a call from somebody. The house wasn't even on the market anymore. A woman buys our house on my birthday. Now, I believe there's some goals in life that we set, you be specific, and then there's some things that you just really need supernatural help with. I believe that was supernatural intervention for it to happen on my birthday, but we took actionable steps to get us there. The only thing we didn't have control of was when that house sold. We could control how we were moving our money, what we were doing so we gave away a lot of stuff in 2017, 2018. We ended up feeding like 10,000 homeless people. 2019, we started setting up nonprofit organizations. And then at the end of 2019, Vox Direct comes along. All right. And Vox Direct ends up not only giving us the opportunity to reach more people, but it fit perfectly in with our plan for freedom. What are the actionable steps that you are building a life and a business that you love? So the final thing is career. Now you'll see there's actually pages that give you an opportunity to go beyond even these 7 areas that we've listed. And you can copy this, you can create, I would make this book just a little piece of your life, because when you go into this now and you look into the quarterly goals, you're going to take each one of those areas, for example, and let's look at finance, for example. And let's say over the course of the next year, there's 4 quarters in a year. That's why we call it Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. And let's say your goal is to be a national director in a year, and you want to be able to do that starting today. So Q1, which would be a 90-day window, each quarter is a 90-day window, so 3 months. So you look at that 90-day window then and you say, okay, Q1, in order to do that, in the first 90 days, I need to be, let's just say, a director. So I need to be a director, and you could say earning $500 residual income a month, right? And so these are not promised goals. I'm just throwing numbers out there, right? So Q2, you put your goal in all the way up to, let's say, Q4. By the end of Q4, you say, I want to be a national director. Well, now that you've done that, let's say in fitness, your goal is to lose, let's just say your goal is to lose 40 pounds, right? I'm making it easy for my math here. So 40 pounds. So Q1, the first 90 days, it's to lose 10 pounds. Next quarter, another 10 pounds, so that by the end of the year, you've lost 40 pounds. What do most people do in fitness? They say they're going to do it, but they never chunk their goals or reverse engineer their goals so that they realize, I don't have to lose 40 pounds today. I don't have to lose 40 pounds in 30 days. In a year, I'm going to be either saying, I'm glad I did, or I wish I had, no matter what. So set a time frame that it's achievable for you. Now you look at 90 days. Can I lose 10 pounds in 90 days? Absolutely. You might say, well, Stacey, I want it to be faster than that. That's okay. Then just change your quarterly goals. It might be 10 pounds every 30 days, right? 10 pounds a month. Well, that's going to be a more aggressive goal. You set the goals according to your vision, your why, right? Same thing with your family. You can break those down into quarterly goals. Now, once you've done quarterly goals, flip the page. Now we want to break it down even more. We want to go into monthly actions. Now, if you look on there, if you've got quarterly goals, that means, again, let's go back to in your first 90 days, you want to be a director. All the way up to Q2, you want to be a national director. So now let's go back into Q1 and let's look at those 3 months. In the first month in your finances, you would say, okay, I have 90 days to get to director. Now you guys can go actually into the deep dive of the compensation plan. And I've actually drawn this out for you guys so you know exactly what to do in order to reach director and be making at least $500 residual a month plus the bonuses. So, but let's just look here. So you have 3 months to achieve director. That means that you're going to need to have a goal and know the compensation plan that in your first month, I believe, and we'd have to go back in and look at the compensation plan deep dive, but I believe it's that your first month, you need to become a supervisor, right? At bare minimum, team leader, but a supervisor. So by going in and saying, I want to be a supervisor, that's going to open up 10% on 2 different tiers of the compensation plan. So that's a great goal for you to be able to have. So first goal, first month, maybe supervisor. Second month, if your goal is 90 days to director, I want to be a manager in my second month. So you write that out. In month 2, I want to be a manager. In my third month, I want to be a director. So now you've broken it down into monthly actions. So now we're going to reverse engineer it a little bit more. Now we're going to go into weekly. So if in your first month you need to be a supervisor, what does that mean that you need to do each week for 4 weeks? Because remember, it was a monthly goal to hit supervisor. So you've got 4, sometimes 5 weeks, depending upon what month it is. But let's just say 4. You've got 4 weeks to step into that role of supervisor. Well, what are you going to need to do? Well, as a supervisor, if you need to have 2 people or 1 person, and you're going to have multiple people. Let's just say you're working on a rate of 10%. Then you want to look at the compensation plan and look at the structure of supervisor. And then say, in order to be supervisor, I want to be able to talk to 20 people so that I can have the 2 people that I need in order to really drive into, ultimately, it's going to be 3. So in order to be a director, you've got to have at least 3 personal consultants. You can see the breakout there in the deep dive compensation plan. So I would say, even in that first month, that you say, I want to have 3 people in my team in the first month directly connected to me as consultants with a customer. So in order to get 3, and let's just say you're working on an average of 10% effectiveness or 10% close rate, means you need to talk to 30 people in your first month. So again, we're breaking month down into weekly. So if that's 30 people you need to talk to in a month, divide that by how many days are in the month. I mean, how many weeks are there? We said 4, right? So you're going to need to talk to probably about, what is that, about 7 or 8 people a week. So now break that down into daily goals. So the daily goals, you're going to now look at that. That means I need to be talking to at least 1 person a day, right? At least 1 person a day. So depending upon how big your goal is or what your goal is, you want to be able to step back and say, there's no goal. Let's go back for just a second. I want to do one more thing. Let's take this and let's say this is finances. Let's say this is fitness. And again, you have 40 pounds you want to lose in a year or 4 quarters, which means 10 pounds a quarter. So we go into the quarter, then we go into the monthly. I want to lose 10 pounds this month. So now we know my monthly plan is 10 pounds, which means if I have 10 pounds in the month and there's 4 weeks in the month, that means I need about 2.5 pounds a week, which means, do you think you can lose 2.5 pounds a week? Well, that sounds like a doable goal. So now as you look at that and you back it down and you say, what do I need to do today in order to lose 2.5 pounds per week? Well, when you look at that, all of a sudden, now you go and you say, I've got to walk every day. I've got to make sure that I'm eating with wisdom, make sure that I'm having great sleep habits. Why? Not because I'm trying to lose 40 pounds today or this week, because I'm just looking to lose 2.5 pounds this week. And 2.5 pounds is doable. So as you reverse engineer goals, and I look forward to y'all's comments on this, and we might need to spend more time on reverse engineering goals. What it does is it gives you daily actions. It helps you step back and going, all right, if I've got to talk to 1 person a day, that means I've got to find, and maybe you say, you know what, I want to make that 2. Well, you may look and go, well, I'm going to have an hour a day that I can do that. So now you're changing your habits into modalities that become a part of your daily operations. So that when you get to the end of the month, you don't look and go, shoot, I wish I had. You say, hot dog, I'm glad I did. Every day, do what I needed to do in order to be successful with my Vox Direct business. The reason why this is so important, again, is because there's people around you that will be impacted by the life and the legacy that you live. They'll be impacted by the habits you do today. Today might be a weekday for you. It might be a weekend. But what you do today will impact your life over the course of the next 30, 60, 90 days, and even each quarter of the year and throughout the years to come. Every day is another opportunity for you to wake up and say, this is the first day of the rest of my life. I might have failed up until now. I might have been really doing nothing. Your failure is really only failure if you quit. So maybe you thought you failed up until now, but if you wake up today and say, today, I am going to start over. Today, I'm going to start talking to people. Today, I'm going to go for a walk. Today, I'm going to forgive. Today, I'm actually going to go out and I'm going to do something good for someone else. Today, I'm going to find a new friend. Today, I'm going to find white space in my life and I'm going to begin meditating and praying and just inhaling and breathing better. Today, I'm going to give up coffee. At least one. You don't need to give up coffee. Coffee's really good. I'm not going to commit to that. I'm not going to ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. But every day you can do something that leads you closer to the life and business that you love. And we've gone through 4 processes or 4 modules in the E4 certification program. And I believe that as you go back through this and you really invest your time into the education process, the engagement process, the equipping process, and the empowerment. The reason why we call this empower is obviously you can see that you're never going to outperform yourself. You're never going to out heal your healing. You're never going to love people any greater than you love yourself. And that's why mindset reset and being able to put modalities and habits to the goals that you've set for your life and having a true North Star that you believe in, that you're willing to live for, breathe for, get up day and night for, maybe sweat for, bleed for. That North Star has to be something that you are so passionate about that nothing on the planet is going to stop you. You stay plugged in. You surround yourself with the right people, the right tools, the right team in order to help yourself have the bigger chance at being successful. I have been so honored to be able to walk you through this. And the days to come, I look forward to this certification getting better and better, having times where we have events together where you walk across the stage, getting your certificate and being able to say, I'm glad I did. My prayers are with you. I believe in you. I look forward to meeting you personally as we hit the road with our regional tours, big events coming up. Look forward to seeing you on the webinars and the calls to come. I really do say thank you, Vox Direct. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Brian and Kevin and the entire team at Vox Direct for allowing me to be a part of hopefully making a difference in the lives of many. Larry, back over to you.
Awesome. Great job. And I don't know about you guys, but I got a lot out of today. And I am so thankful for the time that you've spent today, Stacy, sharing with everybody today. We have gotten a lot of information, and I hope you guys have all been taking copious notes so that you can apply what you learned today to your life, to your business, because it's our desire is that you have an opportunity with Vox Direct to create a life and a business that you love. And so I believe that what you've learned today will help you in that path of doing so. So I want to recap a couple of things. Again, March 25th, we're going to be having a national Zoom webinar. It's going to be using this exact same link that you guys used today. And another thing too, if you guys need help, if you need support, please reach out to our support team. Support@voxdirect.com is our email address, support@voxdirect.com, or you can always go to help.voxdirect.com, which is our website for our support team, and you can submit a request or ask for help there. And then, of course, in the lower left-hand corner of all of our pages, there's a help icon that you can click on. And if it's during business hours, we have folks who will engage in a chat with you to help you out with whatever your needs are and be able to take care of you post haste. So I hope you guys have a great, amazing rest of your weekend, and look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Thank you for your time today. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.